All right, let's get started. On the news, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has disbanded the war cabinet. Let's take a look at what's going on in Israel, and then we're going to move on, and we'll do some more fun news as well today. Like we'll do a variety day.
Developments in the war in Gaza. The Israeli military has announced a daytime pause in the fighting in a narrow strip of territory in the south to allow more aid to get in. And this morning, in a sign of new political...
By the way, before the war cabinet disbanded, okay, let me tell you something, okay? They got fucking smoked. 12 IDF, Israeli occupying force soldiers got fucking absolutely packed up. Pack watch time for them. Apparently, there was a massive ambush in Rafah. 12 of them just packed up. Straight up, gone. R.I.P. Bozo shit, okay? That's already also happening. That's already also happening in fucking North Gaza, where Israel's supposed to be controlling the territory. So they're not doing all right. They're not doing all right at all. They're getting fucking swept up. Yeah, the Israeli diaper forces are not doing great. Not doing great at all. You know, they smoked a 49-year-old warrant officer and his 23-year-old captain. Yeah, I saw that. A 55-star general got clapped. Okay, bro. Yeah, 19-year-old captains are getting fucking R.I.P. bozoed on a regular basis over here.
Political tensions over the conduct of the war. Israeli Prime Minister, that's Benjamin Netanyahu, disbanded an influential decision-making group. Chris Livesay has that part of the story.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has dissolved his war cabinet, once a coalition of rivals meant to sow unity during the conflict in Gaza. That changed last week when Benny Gantz, the leading moderate opponent of the prime minister, resigned over the absence of a plan to govern Gaza after the war. Many have feared Netanyahu would now lurch towards the hard right. The lynch.
Is this good or bad? I mean, there is no good. This is Israel we're talking about. There is no good, only bad, okay? Like, every single instance of like, instability in Israel literally just moves Israel further to the right for some fucking reason. Is it bad or is it going to get worse? And the answer is it probably will get worse. I don't know where the fuck Israel will go from here. I genuinely have no predictions. I'm just in a fucking waiting and watching pattern at this point, because shit is not all right. It's not all right. It hasn't been all right in a while, and it's just getting fucking more and more insane out there.
Of his remaining support. The shakeup comes after Israel announced a tactical pause in the fighting along 7.5 miles of road in the Rafah area during daylight hours to allow more aid. In Gaza and around the Muslim world, it's the Islamic holiday of Eid al-Adha.
Because, like, you got the war cabinet on the one hand in a state of disarray, can't figure out what to do with Gaza. What is the after-war plan for Gaza? There is no after-war plan for Gaza. Obviously, internally, there's a shit ton of commotion within the war cabinet, within the actual government. Like, it's basically like genocide plus ultra, omega genocide, and those are like the three warring factions, right? You got normal genocide guys who are just like, okay, we're doing ethnic cleansing, and that's great, and that's fine. That's like the Benny Gantz division. And then you got the genocide plus guys who are like the Benjamin Netanyahu division. And then you have the genocide plus ultra guys, which would be like the Bezalel Smotrich and the Itamar Ben-Gvir coalition. The genocide plus ultra guys are basically fucking running around being like, we should do the genocide in Gaza and then do more genocide in Lebanon. Benny Gantz being like the center right person, disbanding or leaving the coalition, alongside, there's another guy. What was it? Fuck, what's the other dude's name? God, the other dude is so lame that he's like not getting any fucking play whatsoever. I'm forgetting. Eisenkot, right? Yeah. So Eisenkot and Benny Gantz left. Benny Gantz is supposed to be like the actual. Was it Eisenkot? What's the fuck's the other guy's name? Yeah, is a I think yeah, this is pretty funny. Eisenkot accuses Prime Minister of delaying Rafah offensive by 3 months due to political interests. He's the ex-war in interviews. Ex-war cabinet observer says Netanyahu's intimidated by the far right and should resign. Says he regrets not pushing harder to extend November truce to get more hostages out. So, I think this is pretty fair speculation that like Benjamin Netanyahu probably timed this hostage extraction to like say fuck you to Benny Gantz. Like, I think is a valid reason to speculate this. Like, they were like, oh yeah, we're working on this for months, and then he kind of fucking timed it when Benny Gantz was saying like, I'm gonna leave the war cabinet. I'm gonna leave the war cabinet. I have like, you know, bullet points as to why I'm gonna leave the war cabinet, because you fucking suck. You are fucking this up. You're fucking the bag up. I'm much better at doing genocide. I am literally the genocide guy. Like, let me do it. I'm the genocide guy. I've done war crimes. I am a general. I will do the right thing. America likes me. Meanwhile, Benjamin Netanyahu is like, absolutely not. I don't care. You're a pussy. I'm the one who can, you know, I'm the one who will never allow the Palestinians to have statehood. I've been in this game for far longer than you. You're just like a gay ass general. You don't know your shit. I can continue controlling the Israeli far right and therefore extend my, extend my time as the head of the state so I don't go to prison. I can avoid jail. And that's my primary function here. And it seems like that those internal contradictions have inevitably yielded this implosion within the war cabinet. So yeah, that's the situation. Meanwhile, you got an untenable situation in southern Gaza. Okay, the Gaza envelope is not exactly restored. People don't want to live there because they're afraid, and also the wounds have not healed, and also the Israeli government is not spending enough money. They're too busy fucking demolishing, Negev and doing internal colonialism instead of just like investing and reinvesting in the Gaza envelope, which they claim they're going to do. Northern Israel is fucking cooked. 60,000 Israelis have left northern Israel. People are just leaving Israel in general. The Israeli government, like the Israeli government is in a state of disarray. The Israeli economy is in a state of disarray. They are so fucking horny to do genocide overall that they're just kind of like, no, this is our main focus right now. People are leaving Israel. Israel is becoming more and more of a fucking social pariah. Its economy is cooked. You don't have the Palestinian slaves that you normally would have, you know, the indentured servitude of Palestinians that you could easily fucking utilize from the Gaza Strip with worker permits. They're gone because obviously now they're like, well, every Palestinian is a terrorist, so like we can't have them inside of the colony. So reinvesting to the benefit of who? Do Gazans get access to the rebuilt city? No, I'm talking about the Gaza envelope, which is on the other side of the Gaza border, inside of the Green Line, inside of what you would consider Israel proper. Gaza Strip is where all the Palestinians are at the open air prison. Gaza envelope, and this is a confusing thing that happens all the time, especially when you literally translate from Hebrew to English. A lot of people will be like, "What the fuck? They're building inside of Gaza? What is happening?" Like, or they're putting tanks through Gaza or whatever. When half the time they're talking about the Gaza envelope. Hiding behind the mic too much. Big insecurity for real. Are you talking to me? Like, what do you mean? Nah. Okay. In any case, where were we? But yeah, situation is not great. Situation is not great inside of Israel. And of course, as things worsen, as material conditions worsen inside of Israel, what would a fascist administration do? Well, of course, a fascist administration would just like hit the one note that they know how to hit, which is, of course, to try personally and, I don't know, invade Lebanon. He tweeted a video about you this morning. Haters are going to be plentiful today. I don't think so. It seems to me like we are hater free. So are they going to collapse or what? Can they please hurry up and collapse already? It always feels like every week something happens. It's not going to work. It doesn't work like that. But Israel is currently holding on by a thread. Israel's personally being kept alive by America. That's it. America is keeping Israel alive. That's it. Live and alive. Can we talk about another Biden old clip? We got gaming frogs. They're your biggest haters. All right, let's continue.
Muted.
Oh, by the way, Intel has suspended its plans in Israel. By the way, BDS pressure works. Tech giant Intel has halted construction of a new $25 billion factory in Israel, according to Israeli financial sources. Intel still remains deeply complicit in feeding Israel's genocidal war chest, so let's escalate our boycott Intel campaign. Something to also consider. And this kind of shit is happening all around. You hear like every now and then, you'll hear like randomly, you'll be like, Japanese bed and breakfasts are not are telling Israeli tourists like they might be aiding and abetting someone who's connected to the IDF, which would be aiding and abetting a war criminal, and therefore they can't do that. So like this kind of pressure, and it seems like for people they go, whoa, that's fucking racist. Like that's fucking racist as shit. That's so racist. And it's like, oh, that's anti-Semitic. They're just doing that for Jews. It's like, no, they're not doing that. They're doing that to a nation, to a population of people. There's Israeli Jews in this chat as well, obviously. And I suspect that they too understand that this is a negative byproduct for at least a short period of time until the Israeli population turns around and goes, we are becoming a pariah state. We have to change things. Okay? This is a negative consequence of the nation state of your origin literally fucking doing an ethnic cleansing campaign. Anyway. I remember Russians got upset they couldn't buy in Chanel and Gucci at the start of the invasion, like boohoo. Yeah, this happened to Russia as well. Yup, and hitting the anti-semantic button isn't going to work anymore for these tourists. No, it's just like Japan probably wishing it could say the same to occupying U.S. soldiers, to be honest. No, it's not even like a national thing. This is not even a national policy at this point. But more and more pressure building up like this is good, because ultimately a lot of people think about the apartheid in South Africa and say like, well, the apartheid ended in South Africa. How did it end? It ended democratically. How did it end democratically? Well, because of BDS, literally boycott, divestment, and sanctions on the state of South Africa, as long as it maintains its fucking apartheid. That is what caused the white population to change their attitude, recognizing that they had become a social pariah in the Western world that they actually enjoyed allegiances in, that they enjoyed fucking flying over to and participating in. Once people started looking at them weird, once like the overarching majority population attitude towards apartheid South Africa was so sullied and so negative that you had the likes of Joe Brandon, Genocide Joe himself, Jim Crow Joe himself at the time, delivering impassioned speeches in Congress about how the South African apartheid must end. This is one of the gravest injustices you've ever heard. All of a sudden, South Africans themselves basically were like, okay, we got to change this shit up. We got to change this. We got to, delete this apartheid. We can't keep it. We can't keep it going because at that point you're at odds. You're like, on the one hand, you have white supremacy. Okay. Bro, this guy keeps saying you have spinach or something stuck. What is happening? No, I don't. Shut the fuck up. Here, I don't have anything stuck in my fucking tooth. Why are you guys doing this? Is this like a new thing? Is it a new meme? Or is this just the one guy? Anyway, there's two interests at the time in South Africa, right? You have, on the one hand, people who want to maintain the apartheid, people who want to not live around black people who do not want to give black people the same rights. Okay? And on the other hand, they also want to keep being able to travel to the Western world and like not have to hide that they're South African, for example. You know what I mean? And obviously, those two interests become at odds when there's a shit ton of pressure, a shit ton of public pressure, a shit ton of direct action. So that is the reason why ultimately people were like, yeah, we love this racism shit, but honestly, we should probably abolish this apartheid because like I still want to be able to travel to the Western world. I still want to be able to do business in the Western world. And we can't really do that right now. All right. Hopefully, inshallah, one day the same will happen to Israel as well. Let's continue.
For this displaced family, taking refuge in a stable. Our hearts break when we hear of people eating Eid sweets, this grandmother tells our CBS News team in Gaza. The Biden administration says Hamas is stalling a deal to release 120 remaining hostages in exchange for a ceasefire. But if this pause holds, it could at least address some of these overwhelming needs as Israeli forces pursue the remaining Hamas brigades in Rafah. In central Gaza, 9 people were killed overnight when a home was struck. Here, the tactical pause does not apply. The fighting goes on.
Tactical
now,
pause.
The war cabinet now...
By the way, you have to remember, this also is, there are logistical issues with delivering aid to every part of Gaza, obviously, because the fucking roads are blown up. That's one issue. Then there's also the secondary problem, which is that Israel refuses to let in aid into Gaza to begin with. Even if they do a tactical timeout, even if they fucking do a tactical timeout on the genocide, which they don't actually full-blown timeout on the genocide, okay? They still won't let in a lot of, or the necessary amount of aid. They've increased the amount of aid that is being let in currently in this time frame, but that still is not enough.
Dissolve was also built to bypass those far-right members of Benjamin Netanyahu's government. Well, sources tell CBS News those same far-right ministers will continue to stay outside of the day-to-day decision-making of the war. Gail?
Chris Livesay reporting from Tel Aviv. We thank you.
An Israeli official says Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has disbanded the war cabinet, which was responsible for key decisions relating to the Israel-Hamas war. It was formed in the days after the October 7th Hamas attacks. The decision comes after opposition leader Benny Gantz withdrew from the body last week. Meanwhile, Israel's military announced a daily tactical pause along a specific route and specific times to allow for humanitarian aid into Gaza. The IDF later clarified that its troops are still fighting in Rafah and parts of Gaza. CNN's Paula Hancock is joining us now from southern Israel. Paula, let's start with Benjamin Netanyahu's decision to disband his war cabinet. What's behind that decision?
Well, Amara, in the war cabinet, there were always 3 men who were basically making the decisions, which was the Prime Minister, the Defense Minister, and the opposition leader, Benny Gantz. Now, of course, since Gantz has resigned, saying he's in protest of the fact there's...
Save his nation for the Jews is so laughable because they literally ship out high school graduates to Gaza to get murked. Bibi and his cabinet is insane. Yeah. Dude, Dude, you don't understand. It's the safest nation for the Jews. So safe. Except, you know, you can't live in northern Israel any longer because there's fucking wildfires happening all the goddamn time. You don't want to live in the Gaza envelope any longer either. There's uninhabitable parts of the Israeli desert that they are actively trying to destroy the Bedouin Arab communities that exist on top of it, specifically so they can resettle those lands. But ultimately, it's just like not really safe. It doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel safe at all, directly as a consequence of the genocidal ambition that the government has. A genocidal ambition that is absolutely reflected within the population as well, because they're constantly cycling this narrative that Palestinians ain't shit and they deserve less and they're not real fucking humans. So no, you can't fucking claim that this is a safe space when the entire national mythos is built around a fascist ideology of Jewish supremacy and consistent dominance over the indigenous population of the lands that it occupies. It's just not going to happen. Stop projecting, please. What do you mean? Why do I have a feeling like this guy is full of BS? OMG, I'm so happy you're back. Says on 3/5/2022, and then hits me with that. That's cool. Ethno-states inherently breed conflict, period. Exactly. You cannot personally have a safe space while simultaneously engaging in endless war. It's just not going to work that way, okay? Just like, you know, the Nazi Germany was not exactly a safe space for Germans. Why was it not a safe space for Germans either? Obviously, people don't give a shit about that side of the conflict as much because they were like murking, you know, every minority group possible while also creating living space for the Volk, the ethnic Germans. But why was it not safe for the Germans? Because obviously, you know, inevitably that kind of fascist opinion, that fascist attitude is going to turn into a death cult. It's going to inevitably turn the crosshairs on whoever is considered whoever was considered formerly to be a part of the in-group. Here, you wanted me to look at this. The war in Gaza has wiped out entire Palestinian families. AP documents 60 who lost dozens of more. Words besides genocide, U.S. news outlets use to describe genocide. Yeah. I mean, that's precisely what it is. The war in Gaza has wiped out entire Palestinian families. I wonder how. I wonder why. You are too obsessed with what random chatters say. The reason why I am quote unquote obsessed with what random chatters say is because this is a very important opportunity to address very common talking points. I believe that a lot of people personally might have some confusion. And I think it's important to address that instead of like let it fester and get chatters to I don't know, go on their own journey and get radicalized in the wrong direction and then have these like really strong convictions on something like an ethnic cleansing campaign happening. So that's the reason why I try to do everything I can to talk to chatters who are maybe in the throes of misinformation, who are like close, who are still charitable, who are still understanding, who still are on their journey of learning stuff. You might already know. Hey, Professor Galloway says if you don't want a genocide, maybe don't take hostages. What are you talking about? I don't know who Professor Galloway is, but you know, one could say that against Israel 1,000 times over.
No,
but let's continue.
Plan to get the hostages out. No day after plan for Gaza, and not a plan to get people back to northern Israel as well, who've been evacuated it is now effectively a two-person war cabinet. So what he has done is he's disbanded that, and he has said, according to an official in his office, that the decisions when it comes to the war in Gaza will be made on a security cabinet basis, which is a wider cabinet basis. Also saying that, or experts are saying that this kind of avoids the pressure that was coming from the far right of his coalition. Some of those far right elements wanted to be part of the war cabinet. So by disbanding it, potentially he has got rid of that problem as well. He doesn't have to accept or reject them, because he does have a balancing act when it comes to his coalition at this point. But they do say within the Prime Minister's office this won't make a difference to actually making the decisions on the war in Gaza, and if they have to, they will have smaller groups to decide tactical changes. Amra?
And regarding that tactical pause, if there is still fighting going on in Rafah and parts of Gaza,
The pause is so tactical, you might not even be able to, if you just, it's so tactical, you might miss it. You know what I mean? I love how tactical the pause is. So, you know, if you're not paying extra close attention to the bombing campaigns, you might actually miss that there is a pause happening at all. You know, in between the tactical pause, again, as we covered already, 9 civilians were fucking murked. So, you know, it's that tactical.
as the IDF says, is this tactical pause in effect to allow humanitarian aid in?
So this is a pause that comes from the Kerem Shalom crossing where we just were, and it goes into Gaza and then up the Salahadin Road, which is effectively the north-south road that runs through Gaza. Now, from the IDF's point of view, they say that they are securing that road, so it will be safe for international aid organizations to distribute aid, which they say is stuck on the Gaza side of the Kerem Shalom border. They say there's more than 1,000 trucks that are there currently. But we've spoken to some of those aid groups, including the UN groups in Gaza, and they say that sometimes it is simply too dangerous for them to be able to get to that crossing and pick up the aid. It's not just the fighting that they're concerned about, it's also the sense of lawlessness in Gaza. There is a lot of looting. They say it's very dangerous for them to be able to try and distribute the aid. I did ask the IDF spokesperson if there would be some kind of military escort with these trucks to try and get the aid in, and that was not answered. So at this point, it doesn't appear that that would be the case. We've also heard from the Gaza Media Office saying that as far as they're concerned, there's been no tactical pause. So they believe that it is Israeli lies in their words. Now, the IDF has been quite clear that the fighting will continue. It will continue in Rafah, which is very close to where this route is for the tactical pause, as they will be continuing what they have been doing.
It's great. It's like they just get to say whatever the fuck they want, and there's no real mechanism of pushback against Israel, so it doesn't really matter. Like, the tactical pause doesn't actually necessarily mean that there's a real pause. The safe zones doesn't necessarily mean that they're safe at all. And there is no real rules of war that Israel normally is supposed to abide by. And there is no media apparatus that actually calls it out as it is. The New York Times, as a matter of fact, recently, over the weekend, conducted its investigation, or at least finalized its investigation into what is now known as the Tent Massacre. You guys want to know what the conclusions were? Well, the conclusions were exactly what we've been saying since the beginning of the Tent Massacre, that Israel actually lied about these secondary explosions happening at a munitions depot that was, next to where the target was. Israel lied about that too. They have never stopped lying. At this point, it's like, if you're actually paying attention to what Israel is saying and what Israel is doing, there's no fucking way you could ever trust them. There's no fucking way whatsoever. Israel is actually destroyed. What kind of trust you could have? What kind of confidence you could have in them being honest by consistently lying over and over again? But it doesn't matter, because no matter what happens, Israel will literally still do the same exact thing, and the fucking dumbasses in the media will still act like what they're saying is correct, what they're saying is honest. I don't know how to I don't know how to manage the situation at this point when people are just like very obviously consistently lying at the behest of the Israeli government, right? At a certain point, you have to start recognizing that the media is complicit in this genocide. According to Channel 12 Israel, Blinken told BB US will remove all limits on weapons transfers. So much for the red line. Oh, nice. Thank God. I doubt it, but I don't know if they'll go that balls to the wall, but we'll see.
Amara?
All right, Paula Hancock's watching this for us from southern Israel. Thank you, Paula. Meanwhile, a U.S. special envoy arrives in Israel Monday as tensions escalate on Israel's northern border with Lebanon. CNN's Ben-Gvir is joining us now live from Beirut. Ben, UN officials are warning that there is a very real danger of miscalculation escalating the conflict along the Israel and Lebanon's border. What have you learned?
Well, what we've been seeing is that certainly in the last few weeks, things on the border have gotten much hotter in terms of the daily back and forth between Hezbollah and Israel, although I must add that it's currently a Muslim holiday, and yesterday, at least from Hezbollah's side, they didn't fire anything at the Israelis as far as we can tell. But this envoy, Amos Hochstein, who's the senior energy advisor at the White House, and he's really the point man in dealing with the Lebanon-Israel file for the United States. He's in Israel now. We assume, although it has not been officially announced, that he's going to be coming to Beirut in the coming days. Nonetheless, what is obvious?
Hamas not lying, not willing to do any genocide? Question mark. Pro-Palestinians weren't there for Syria or Ukraine. Wait, what? Dude, this is yet another clear indication that like Hasbara operations have fucking fallen so far apart that there are literally there is just like the most absurd level of whataboutism going on. You know what I mean? One, Hamas not lying. I never said that Hamas doesn't have the capacity to lie. So far, though, you have to look at what their statements have been, what their goals have been, and what their information delivery has looked like so far. They have a much clearer track record. You might not hear about it that much because you only hear about Hamas. You only hear about Hamas from either Israeli authorities or from the Western media, which rarely ever looks at what they have to say at all and will very rarely interview the actual envoys from Hamas, like on the Politburo side of things. Not willing to do genocide, question mark, is also ridiculous. There is no reverse genocide happening. There is no reverse genocide narrative, okay? And pro-Palestinians weren't there for Syria or Ukraine is also insane. I don't know what the fuck. I don't know how to deal with this whatsoever. Number one, this does not mean that Israel gets to do an ethnic cleansing campaign upon the Palestinian population. But secondly, you have no idea what those people's opinions are on Syria or Ukraine. Not that it fucking matters, but it is a pretty ridiculous thing to fucking talk about. You have no idea. You just kind of drop that in here. Yep, still, don't get me wrong, Netanyahu's a piece of shit, but I find pro-Palestinians one-sided on that. I haven't seen people's in the street for Syria. It doesn't matter. That is not a... You cannot... Okay, the Holocaust happened. You can't literally be like, where were the Jews for the Armenian genocide? Sucks to suck. Like, do you see what I mean? That would be ridiculous, right? If you were to say like, oh, none of the Jews were out there protesting for the fucking... Armenian genocide would be a ridiculous fucking argument to make. You can't match what the people's opinions are on one fucking one genocidal action versus the other. Okay? I saw a 3-month-old in hospital. You didn't condemn. That is not my point. I get your point, but mine is all of a sudden the world is awakened on that cause and not others. Yes. You want to know why? Because Syria, for the most part, is seen as like Western interference in the civil war that fucking ripped through a brown country. Okay, it's brown on brown violence, I guess, which is something that people don't fucking care about as much. Okay, that is the reality. And also to say that like people don't care about it is ridiculous. It definitely was something that a lot of people fucking cared about in terms of the Obama administration. That's number one. Number two. The reason why all of a sudden the world is awake is because for 76 years, Israel has gotten away with doing all this shit. And this is one of the few instances where a lot of people have actually paid attention and have learned about the 76 years of atrocities and the ongoing atrocities that Israel's engaging in. Then atrocities that could never happen if it wasn't for the unconditional support of the United States of America. And that's precisely the reason why a lot of people are frustrated, because they're like, well, my roads fucking suck. I have no health care. I have no future fucking prospects. And it seems like the only reason why, you know, we don't have enough money in the fucking banana stand for any of these things is because a lot of the money is going directly to America's endless imperialist ambitions. That kind of sucks. I don't want my tax dollars to go and fund baby murder weapons. I want my tax dollars to fund hospitals. I want my tax dollars to fund education. And that's precisely the reason why a lot of people are understandably frustrated, because they realize that, like, for maybe the past 76 years, they or at least like for as long as they've known, as long as they've developed a conscience, they weren't very aware of what the fuck Israel was doing. And they weren't aware of the dynamic between Israel and America. And now they're recognizing it, so they're fucking understandably frustrated. The only reason why you're also frustrated and you're going, why do they care about this and not other stuff, is because you're not used to it either. I feel like I didn't get that many people on those slaughters for Palestine. That is my point, but keep your stream. Thank you for exposing your point. I like your debates, and thanks for giving me the purpose for exposing mine. What? Ultimately, the notion that like people didn't care about Ukraine is fucking ridiculous, okay? There is a global sanctions regime placed upon the Russian government for its unjustifiable and bloodthirsty imperialist ambitions in Ukraine. Like, the idea that Russia is not being talked about is ridiculous. That's another thing. And the same goes for fucking Syria. Yeah, you're coming into a community that has literally raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for Ukraine as well, by the way. So, you know, I don't know what that point is. Yeah, people still very much care about Ukraine. It's just that the prospects are dire for Ukraine, and it seems like America is, you know, interested in keeping it going for as long as they can. All right, let's continue.
Certainly from statements made by senior Israeli officials, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and the signs we're getting from Hezbollah is that both sides are primed.
Orenatnal says the main reason that people care this much about Israel is because Israel is the U.S.'s direct foothold in the MENA region. Contrast that with the genocide of Sri Lanka is committing against the Tamils, where everyone has a material interest in propping up Sri Lanka, where not everyone has a material interest in propping up Israel. Sri Lanka committed the exact same war crimes we're seeing in Gaza right now to the letter. Yeah. No, absolutely. It's the same reason as to why people, I mean, this community is not one of them, but like I talked extensively about Myanmar, right? But a lot of people didn't. And that is because it's happening over there. It's like, I don't really understand it. And who cares? Whereas like we as American citizens have a direct fucking involvement in Israel's affairs, a direct involvement in Israel's affairs. And we are so goddamn connected. It is akin to like America doing Israel style actions in Afghanistan and Iraq. And plenty of people were fucking critical of that too. So
For escalation.
not that it matters though, because it's
Every
just
day
pure
the message
whataboutism.
goes out from South Lebanon in slick propaganda videos accompanied by a stirring soundtrack. Hezbollah is ready to go from daily skirmishes to full-scale war with Israel. Mired in what appears to be an unwinnable war in Gaza, Israel has vowed to turn its military might on Hezbollah. Earlier this month, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the border, saying, "We are prepared for very strong action in the north." But the Iranian-backed group is by far the most formidable, battle-hardened foe Israel has faced on its borders since the 1970s.
Listen, bro, the fucking Israeli diaper brigades can't even fucking do anything against like against guerrilla warfare of like recently orphaned fucking teenagers, okay? Like, not all of the Hamas militants or the Al-Qassam brigades or the Palestinian Islamic Jihad brigades, like, not all of them are super fucking highly trained individuals, okay? They don't have like an incredible amount of combat experience. Hezbollah, on the other hand, does have an incredible amount of combat experience due to all of the operations that they conduct in the region in general. Okay. Hezbollah is also incredibly well armed in comparison to Hamas. They're not making fucking Yasin rockets in a goddamn bathtub and deploying it on like $500 Yasin rockets they fucking make off of like components that they grab from the ground of like Israeli munitions that, or Israeli ordnance that doesn't fucking explode or whatever. Okay. They have their own missile facilities. So ultimately, a war or an invasion into Lebanon, into southern Lebanon, is going to be history repeating itself. It will definitely be horrifyingly bad for everyone involved, but certainly for Israel. Unless Israel can directly get America to be involved. I doubt that America wants Israel to go into Lebanon, because that kind of broader regional conflict will awaken Iran and will genuinely cause problems. Like, that is like World War III territory at that point. They have an actual standing military. They're actually experienced. Israel already is having a fucking hard time with this like counterinsurgency shit that they're trying to do in Gaza. They're not going to be able to do that in southern Lebanon at all.
73 October War. After its guerrillas forced Israel to pull out of South Lebanon 24 years ago, in 2006, Hezbollah fought Israel to a standstill. Although the war left parts of Beirut and much of southern Lebanon in ruins. Retired Lebanese army.
That, by the way, is the Dahiyya Doctrine. Eisenkot is one of the fucking architects have said the Dahiyya Doctrine, the person that we mentioned earlier. The Dahiyya Doctrine is just basically declaring the entire area to be enemy combatants and deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure. They are doing that in Gaza as well, obviously, and they want to do that in Lebanon once again. Ultimately, however, it's mass murder of civilians and destruction of mass murder of civilians and destruction of civilian infrastructure is not necessarily going to yield positive results for Israel in general.
Army Brigadier General Elias Hanna knows the militant group well.
Hezbollah is an
Yeah, here it is. Here's the proof of what I was saying. Israel must target civilian infrastructure in Lebanon. The pressure Hezbollah, IDSF head says. IDSF CEO Lieutenant Colonel Yaron Buskila discussed Israel's escalation with Hezbollah, emphasizing the need to hold both Hezbollah and Lebanon accountable. They have one fucking speed, bro. They have one speed. One speed. That's it. And that's just bloody murder of the entire civilian infrastructure and civilian population. Isn't that terrorism? Yes, it is. But when it's a state doing it, especially a state that is aligned with the U.S., they get to do it. And it's not considered terrorism. Terrorism is resisting against such actions of terror.
Exclusive club, well-disciplined, monitored, and they have, which is the most important issue, a charismatic leader. Hasan.
Since October, Israeli strikes have killed more than 300 Hezbollah fighters, including last week high-ranking commander Talib Abdullah given a hero's.
Do you think the nature of war has changed so much that there cannot be any more real clear victories without total population wipeout? I think that they just used to do total population wipeout back in the day. Settler colonies before the advent of the internet or, or any kind of media apparatus. When in the old days of telegram, carrier pigeons, people would just do that shit, and we would just kind of learn about it after the fact. History is riddled with these kinds of settler colonial actions. This country is literally built on top of settler colonial genocide upon the indigenous population. The difference is doing it in 2024 hits a little bit different. You know what I mean? It's pretty crazy to do it in 2024 because people are like, what do you mean? This is like what I learned in the history books about what we shouldn't be doing. You know? So when it's happening in real time and it's happening in a like post-World War II universe where like we have this supposed rule-based international order that a lot of people take for granted, all of a sudden the dynamic is very different. You can't be fucking laying siege on an entire civilian population like this. There's rules that you are supposed to abide by. Rules that even like America technically was supposed to abide by, even though it didn't necessarily abide by those rules, but never to the same degree as fucking Israel even. So that is the major problem here. Like, one, Israel is not America, right? It's supposed to be an independent nation from the United States of America. Two, even though America did a shit ton of brutality and has done a shit ton of brutality and continues to do a shit ton of brutality, even in like Iraq and Afghanistan, what Israel is doing is basically like the first day of the Iraqi invasion, but for 8 months. Think about that. Like after the invasion of Iraq, basically America would still bomb villages, of course, regularly, but like they've never stopped doing shock and awe. Imagine if they never stopped doing shock and awe and just reduced the entirety of the densely civilian populated areas into rubble non-fucking stop.
Farewell in Beirut. At the funeral, senior Hezbollah leader Hashem Safiuddin warned, "We will increase our operations in intensity and force, in quantity and quality." Analysts believe Iran has provided Hezbollah with an arsenal of sophisticated long-range missiles capable of reaching Tel Aviv and beyond. Until now, Hezbollah has mostly limited its strikes to military targets along the rugged mountainous frontier, hitting Israel's extensive...
I was timed out for 10 minutes because I asked about your Houthi interview. The dude wasn't a Houthi. He was a Yemeni teenager. I don't know what this is, but you got timed out because you were constantly fucking posting this shit over and over again. So I don't know what is this? Israel's trying to start a war with Lebanon? What the fuck are you saying? Do you know how many times I had to run with my pregnant wife to the nearest bomb shelter because Hezbollah relentlessly firing rockets towards us civilians? You're fucking pathetic. Move, bitch. Can you explain your Houthi controversy? There is no real fucking controversy. Okay? There is no actual controversy. It's not even a Houthi militant or anything like that, even though I do reserve the right to fucking interview whoever the fuck I want. And if anyone has an issue with that, they can suck my dick. Having said that, however, this was a Yemeni teenager that everybody just basically said was a Houthi and cried about it and complained about it. Meanwhile, you can go on a fucking sponsored trip to literally a genocidal nation currently doing an ethnic cleansing campaign and not a single person bats an eye. I wonder how that works. The very same individuals from the very same communities that have fucking complained endlessly about me interviewing a 19-year-old who survived a fucking American-backed genocide, okay, have no smoke whatsoever for someone doing, genocide, pro-genocide propaganda by flying directly to Israel. That is sick. That's cool. That's dope. That's awesome. That's like on the ground reporting, right? Anyway, let's continue.
Network of surveillance posts. It also says it has taken out an Iron Dome battery, the backbone of Israel's missile defenses, and has used ground-to-air missiles to shoot down 3 top-of-the-line Hermes 900 drones. In the process, forcing tens of thousands of Israelis to flee their homes in the north. Hezbollah is learning faster than Israel can adapt, says Hanna.
They are learning. It's like learning process. It's like trial and error. So as far as you go in time, you are seeing more intensity, more combined use of weapon, and then more in depth and more in effectiveness against the Israelis. And
I know people who are Jewish and are opposed to Israel and the genocide in Gaza, but still think birthright is fair game because it's just a free trip on someone else's dime. Do you have thoughts on this? Yeah, I personally also used to think like whatever, anti-Zionist or Zionist, like go on birthright. But a lot of people that I do care about whose opinions I do care about, have said it is infinitely better not to participate in Birthright whatsoever, because it is a direct fucking propaganda mission. It is indoctrination happening. So don't do it.
What is the problem? That the Israelis have no answer for that.
Since October, Israel has bolstered its forces on the border and held
Not everyone is going to be like Adam Friedland.
To prepare for war. Hezbollah is also ready for war. A war that is just one miscalculation away. Now, Mr. Hochstein is probably trying to convince the Israelis now is not a good time, given the situation in Gaza, to jump into a war with Lebanon. And of course, in Lebanon, given Hezbollah's strength and abilities to strike well inside Israel, the price for Israel would be very high. But Prime Minister Netanyahu is under intense pressure from the public in Israel to allow those people who fled the north to go back home. So they're really in a bind. Now, the one solution, and what has been seen before, is that in late November of last year, when there was an 8-day halt in the fighting in Gaza and there was a release of hostages in exchange for Palestinian prisoners and detainees, the border along between Lebanon and Israel was quiet. Hezbollah has made it clear, if the fighting stops in Gaza, the border will be quiet. So probably a ceasefire is the best solution all around. Amara?
Ben Wiedemann in Beirut for us. Thank you so much.
Anyway, we got, okay, before we move away from the Israel stuff, there was a couple things I wanted to mention, because we are going to talk about the conscription squads sending Ukrainian men into hiding. And of course, we're going to talk about Toilet Paper USA. As far as, here, this is what Andrew wanted us to watch. This is, let's see if you can pick up on what this like old ass anime was doing in terms of like propaganda. It's a short 4-minute clip. Anyone bearing a weapon will be immediately executed. Anyone suspected of bearing weapons resisting or attempting to hide or escape will be handled according to the situation. In actuality, these orders indicted indiscriminate murder. The Earth forces who broke into the city were given license to slaughter and destroy, and were enthusiastic in their looting and acts of violence. This was the beginning of what would become the Bloody Night. The city's art museums had their collections and paintings and jewels plundered, and countless precious and countless precious and rare books were tossed in the flames by soldiers who didn't understand their value. Does that look familiar to you? In the northern district outside the city, there was a concentration of facilities like diamond ore, polishing plants, and processing plants for gold and platinum. And in their scramble for that, there was an ugly outbreak of friendly fire between the 2nd Aerial Assault Division and the 5th Urban Warfare Division, which had encroached from the shore. Between the two sides, there were 1,500 casualties, and among the corpses, there were many whose abdomen were torn into pieces. This was presumed to be a result of their stomach having been slit open in order to get the diamond ore they had swallowed. Among the civilians, similar harm occurred 100-fold. Old people whose jaws had been removed with army knives to get at their gold teeth. Women who had their ears taken and fingers taken for rings, one after another. In the 10 hours of this bloody night, the over 900,000 citizens of Lag Lane City were murdered by the Earth forces. Substitute Earth forces for Israel and Lag Lane City for Palestinians in Gaza. And yet, Earth forces at first denied this truth. In fact, the supposed mass killings and looting of Lag Lane City never occurred. This is merely a fabrication of traitors who wish to damage the honor of the Israeli Defense Force. 3 days later, the military authorities had made a completely different announcement. The killings and looting definitely occurred. However, it was a very small scale and resulted in no more than 20,000 deaths. Also, the perpetrators were not the Israeli forces, but anti-Israeli guerrillas, Hamas, that were concealed in the city. Bro, down to the fucking, I swear to God, down to the motherfucking aerial photographs, bar for bar. I swear to God. Yes, the anime is called Legend of Galactic Heroes. And in the aftermath, they laid the blame on the Israeli forces for these anti-Israel actions. That is to say, we believe that the guerrillas are still hiding in the city. The reason for the official viewpoint shifting 180 degrees in a mere 3 days was never explained. As part of the Israeli forces' pledge to complete their mission, they held a search and destroy operation targeting the armed remnants, and there were another 350,000 victims. And yet, from these acts of barbarism, a hope was born for the various colony worlds. Karl Palmgren, who was a 25-year-old broadcast reporter at the time, was beaten with rifle butts and suffered serious injuries when he refused to submit to a military inspection of his personal belongings. When he regained consciousness on a mountain of corpses being burned with liquid rocket fuel, he succeeded in using the smoke to escape. An accountant in metallic radium mine with the clerk of a labor union, 23-year-old Winslow Kenneth Townsend. Maybe we'll do this on the weekend. We'll do this Legend of Galactic Heroes watch if we can find it dubbed. I didn't cover the Channel 11 piece about how Israel knew down to like the minute details of October 7. Overlooking a military parade through his apartment window and was shot. His mother, who was at his side, was killed. Towson was charged with killing his mother, but he escaped into a mine and disappeared. 20-year-old Joliet Frankel, who was studying medicinal plant. Okay, the rest of it is like not as significant, but basically, I just wanted to show you I wanted to show you the shoot and lie aspect of it. New React series, 100 episodes of Galactic Heroes. Oh, there are TV series and multiple movies. Oh, I didn't realize this was a TV series, but we got to do it dubbed. We can't do it subbed. Did you see a Channel 11 piece from a few hours ago about the leaked intelligence documents from Unit 8200 about Hamas training on the border from 2 weeks before October 7? They documented the exercises meant to occupy kibbutzim and military bases on the envelope to the smallest detail. One of the most damning parts was the document included an estimate for the number of hostages Hamas planned to take into operation, 200 to 250. That's crazy. There is unfortunately no dub. Oh, that sucks. Why are you showing us this instead of covering the genocide? That is the dumbest way to try and fucking bait me at the top of the goddamn hour, okay? I already know your ways. I already know what kind of tricks you're going to implement, okay? At the top of the fucking hour. Why are you showing this instead of covering the genocide? Okay? Get out of here. Get out of here with that bullshit. Because at the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe for $5 or for free with a Twitch Prime. By connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, you get 1 free Prime subscription a month. Some people don't want to recognize that, or at least think that they can just come in here with this bullshit. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. You can also avoid those ads as long as you subscribe, like I said. Disclosure, the intelligence of the 8200... about 2 weeks before October 7, Hamas is preparing for 250 hostages. That's crazy. Down to the fucking number, dude. That is insane. This also calls into question, okay, This also calls into question that the Israeli government knew Hamas's plan to kidnap 250 before October 7, and they still allowed a fucking festival to occur at the goddamn border. Like, they looked at this and were like, this is not real. Get the fuck out of here. AI translation of the Channel 11 news report.
Almost 9 months to the return in October, while the IDF still hasn't published the investigations of the default, we are tonight revealing the intelligence document of 800-2 that was distributed only 2 weeks before that Sabbath, and gave the Southern Command an accurate picture of the raid plan on the...
That's crazy. Once again, this is AI. This is AI dubbing over the Channel 11 report. Okay. I mean, the families of the Nova Festival victims literally sued Netanyahu for exactly this reason in the beginning of October. Yeah. They didn't just allow the festival, they forced its approval. Wait, what? That they had this document in hand and still approved the Nova raid for an extra night is horrifying. Wait, what? In Israel, mass gatherings like this require military approval, and multiple officers in the Gaza Division and IDF Southern Command HQ registered their disapproval of the extension on December 25th, 2023. Haaretz reported that some Gaza Division officers privately told the irregular conduct and pressure surrounding the approval of the party. This culminated in the Gaza Division's operations officer, Lieutenant Colonel Sahar Fogel, being instructed by the IDF HQ's operations division to allow the event despite his express opinion and that of his colleagues. To recap, it seems the IDF forced the approval of the Nova Festival at the last minute over a variety of objections, and despite wide-ranging intelligence suggesting an imminent attack by Hamas. They must have at least heavily guarded the festival, right? Surely they made certain that lots of competent IDF soldiers were stationed at their posts to keep the attendees safe. Who wrote this article? Where is this article from? But yes, Time Without OO is correct. The hostage, I mean, not the hostage families, the families of the Nova Festival victims literally are suing the Netanyahu administration for this, by the way. The cynical interpretation would be that the IDF allowed it, hoping any attacks would be a catalyst for invasion of Gaza. Fuck no. I don't think the IDF allowed this. I don't think the IDF like knew about it and then were like, oh, it'll be sick. It'll be sick if they... Oh, it's from his Substack. Okay, got it. I don't think it's because the IDF allowed this and we're like, oh, it'll be sick if like a bunch of Israelis get murked. No. There is a much simpler explanation for it, and I have literally explained it to you since October 8th. It is hubris. It is arrogance. Yeah. No, they probably dismissed the alarms. Exactly. They probably saw the 8200 report and went, they can't do shit. The fuck are they gonna do? They're fucking apes. They don't know how to deal with our high-tech surveillance apparatus. They can't touch us. That is when you, as the settler colony, believe in your own shit. You start getting lost in the sauce. Okay? That's it. No fucking way would they be able to launch an operation such as this is perhaps the easiest explanation, especially because it completely aligns with the other things that the Israeli government was doing at the time. Remember how I told you about the 2018 Great March of Return, where Palestinian Islamic Jihad snipers had Israeli commanders in their crosshairs, okay? And they sent footage of the Israeli commanders in their crosshairs to Israel. At the time, Israeli snipers were slaughtering civilians that were peacefully demonstrating at the border wall. They killed children. They killed women and children in wheelchairs and shit. Like they did. They shot nurses that were clearly identified as medical personnel. You remember, pregnant women, just unimaginable savagery at the time. And Palestinian Islamic Jihad sent footage of their own snipers trained on Israeli commanders. The Israeli government's reaction to that was not, oh my God, they have our shit, they have our guys in their crosshairs, and they could potentially shoot and kill them. The response was, see, we're so powerful, they're afraid to actually kill these people. Okay? This is the reason why I don't believe that Israel was like, oh yeah, it'll be great if they kill a bunch of Israelis, because that shatters the security, that shatters the sense of security that Israelis had. This was a major L for Israel. This was a major L for Netanyahu, who was the security candidate, obviously, but it was also absolutely a major, like, it was a major moment for so many liberal Zionists who, like, completely got radicalized and were aligned with the rest of the psychopathic, bloodthirsty, monstrous ultra Zionists and you know, the Itamar Ben-Gvir coalition. And the reason for why they did that, the reason why they radicalized in that direction, was because obviously liberal Zionism is still, you know, you're like a liberal fascist, but mostly because it shattered the security veil that Israelis felt they had. Okay? This is massively important. You have to understand, like, that arrogance personally let, that arrogance allowed October 7 to happen in the way that it did, allowed it to be an unimaginably successful military campaign overall, okay? Especially in terms of, like, how many resources the Palestinian side had versus how much resources the Israeli side has, okay? And it destroyed the collective consciousness of Israel. The idea that, like, Israel is this giant in a bad neighborhood that can always push back against their enemies in the shadows. It basically was a breaking point for so many people. So it's something that you have to understand. That's why I don't like. That's why I don't think personally that this was a real like, this was something that they knew ahead of time and were, like, allowing to happen. I think it's more so that it was the unimaginable arrogance that the Israeli government had in terms of how it thought it could continue this occupation, this bloody occupation, without incurring any kind of negative consequences, no wrath, no retaliation whatsoever.
OTEF, including the exact number of abductees that was rehearsed in advance by the terrorists. All the details about what the Gaza Congress knew, here is the disclosure of our reporter Suleiman Mosfeda.
When talking about the intelligence failure on the 7th of October, it seems that everything has already been said. And yet tonight we reveal a chilling document with its level of accuracy, which describes how much the IDF and the intelligence system knew about Hamas's plan to encroach on the territory of the State of Israel and carry out the atrocity.
Remember when the Shin Bet head said your behavior in the West Bank will create backlash and increase threats to our society, and Bibi said you're gay and woke just 9 months before October 7? Yes, I do remember that. Yeah, I do. There were a lot of people inside of the cabinet leading up to October 7, inside of the Shin Bet, which is like the interior security force, right? It's like the FBI. FBI being like, hey, if you keep moving the units, if you keep moving the IDF to the West Bank, if you keep fucking increasing the pressure on the on the West Bank Palestinians, like, you are going to create instability and chaos. That is a direct quote, by the way. No. Like, we're paraphrasing a little bit about the woke and gay part, but they did say that. Benjamin Netanyahu literally said, you're woke. Here, I'll show you. Where was it? Let me see if I can find it. I've covered it before. Do you think Netanyahu is going to rot in jail in Switzerland? Probably not. Where the fuck was it? Let me see. There's been so much. There's been so much written on it. Oh, here. There it is. The leftist deep state agenda has infiltrated the Shin Bet. Israeli minister slams security chief. Members of Netanyahu's coalition criticized the head of Shin Bet security service after he warned Netanyahu about the dangers of Israeli Jewish terrorism. Shin Bet chief Ronan Bar warned Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu that Israeli Jewish terror fans the flames of Palestinian terror, according to a report by Israeli online outlet Ynet News. To which his response was, "You're woke and you're gay. Shut the fuck up." Woke infiltration of the interior security.
The document that came to us was compiled in the Gaza Committee and was given the title Detailed End-to-End Raid Training. It was distributed on September 19, 2023, less than 3 weeks before the Hamas plan went into effect. The person who wrote it reveals in great detail a series of instructions from the elite unit of Hamas, the Nakba, to attack military outposts, kibbutzim.
Why is the quality 2007? I don't fucking know. It's
soldiers
Twitter.
And civilians, and especially instructions on how to hold the abductees and guard them when they are already in the Gaza Strip. You have to read the whole thing to believe how much...
Bro, what are you saying? I think you should check out this article from an Israeli magazine talking about the IDF's AI kill list. I'm curious to hear your opinion. If you're curious to hear my opinion, you should literally look up AI Israel kill list, Hasanabi, and watch the, 50 different fucking videos I have on it. Also a YouTube vid by GDF covering it. Yeah, we watched that video as well personally. Yeah, when that article first came out, I covered it extensively. When the second article came out, what you're talking about is Lavender. I covered both Gospel and Lavender. Gospel is supposed to be the targeting AI that like creates high profile like civilian targets for the Israeli bombing campaign. And Lavender is obviously the human target creation system that they have. On top of that, they also have Where's Daddy, which is which informs the bombing squads when the target is actually reached home, so you can fucking kill them. So you can kill the person with their entire family. Anyway, let's continue.
The writing was on the wall. This document starts by discussing Hamas's military arms company training sequences. Sweating Division's intelligence staff meticulously trailed every tiny detail. At 11 in the morning, several companies were observed gathering for the beginning of the faith, not before prayer and lunch. At 12, equipment and weapons are distributed to the fighters, and then an exercise of when the company is ready. At 2 o'clock, the raid practices begin. The authors of the document detail a series of exercises carried out by Hamas forces before the attack. The military arm of the organization practiced ground and air raids.
This is why I always ask the question, like, how fucking crazy is it that, like, they didn't know? They have 24/7 surveillance. There's no shot. They saw, like, people literally fucking paragliding and stuff beforehand and thought, oh, well, these Palestinians must be just, like, big extreme sports enthusiasts. Like, what the fuck do you think was happening?
It's on Israeli territory, in front of the eyes of the members of the Southern Command. The one who commanded the troops was the commander, who together with the mappers made sure, among other things, to arouse the religious feelings of the warriors. And in every exercise they quoted verses from the Quran, which motivate them to go to war. The first step in the exercise, according to the document, is to open loopholes in the Day-Mexhali situation, built in a strip that simulates the outposts in the Gaza envelope. After breaching the fence, they attack. The exercise was carried out by 4 companies, and each company was assigned a different station. The Israeli intelligence officers who followed the exercise formulated in the document the next steps after the break into Israeli territory and the takeover of the outposts. The handing over of the soldiers and prisoners to the company commanders. The expected number of hostages was written between 200 and 250 people. The military targets of the raid that were also practiced were described in the document. The headquarters of the bases, control and control headquarters. The synagogues at the bases, the squadron headquarters, the communications headquarters, Roayor systems, and the residences of the soldiers and female soldiers. And if what you have seen so far is not creepy enough, now it turns out that the intelligence of the Southern Command and the Gaza Strip was not only aware of the Hamas kidnapping plan, but in that document there is an exact breakdown of the conditions of the hostages' detention, including instructions for the kidnappers, and what to do in an extreme case, how to hold them, and under what conditions the kidnappers can be executed. The document has a chapter called
This is all from a document before October 7th? Yes. Yes. This was Unit 8200, which is like, which ironically had a shit ton of people killed in it and also had a shit ton of hostages. This was directly a base that, it was a surveillance base that the Palestinian resistance groups actually targeted. This surveillance base was documenting the actions and the training happening right before October 7 and issuing warnings to the Israeli government saying like, yeah, they're mobilizing for a massive military campaign and they want to take 200 to 250 hostages, which is crazy. Like they even got the fucking number down. Hold on, my mom is like, Anne? Anne? Oh, she's not here? Okay.
Of the hostages, and here are the instructions for the kidnappers. Allocation of 3 detention places to the department. Guarding tasks must be divided 24 hours a day. Searching the hostages' clothes to make sure they don't have mobile phones. Do not give the weeks' families information about their situation if someone calls. Use the predetermined list of words to call the weeks.
Idea of ignoring this has nothing to do with ego, in my opinion. A state that kills its own hostages can do whatever it takes for the bigger picture, even if it means allowing October 7th to happen. No. Because then, dude, listen. You have to understand something, okay? You have to understand something. If you consider what Israel's like lack of interest in preserving the lives of its Jewish Israeli citizens, you're right when it comes to obviously the Hannibal Doctrine, right? Which declares that if a Israeli soldier or an Israeli civilian is being taken hostage, it's better to just like kill them rather than let Hamas or any kind of Palestinian resistance group to have them so they can bargain with them, right? Having said that, however, this like October 7 and the subsequent actions post October 7, but October 7 especially so, ripped through Israeli collective conscious. Like, I don't think that they would allow this much of a, it goes against the Israeli superiority, right? Like it goes against the primary motive of Zionism, which is that like you are superior to all of these brutal barbarians that you're dominating. Because it showed directly, dude, you're so obsessed with Israel. I know, man. It's really fucked up that I'm covering the most significant, most moral nation on the planet, dude, and its most moral military on the fucking planet conducting an ethnic cleansing campaign on a civilian population is so obsessed. Sorry that as a news commentator, I am engaging in news and commentary on an ongoing genocide. Keck. Got it.
Tie the hands and eyes of all adult hostages, women and children. Provide the hostages with water and food. Report the situation of the hostages. The place of the hostages' stronghold must be changed if the enemy receives information. And pay attention to this instruction given to the kidnappers. To use the hostages as a threat to kill rioters from the kidnapped and anyone who tries to escape. The kill order will be given by the company commander.
Why haven't you hired us yet?
An investigation requires time, an investigation requires inquiries, and we all understand difficult investigations also require an emotional place. It is right to do them in the right way. This document was known to the top of the intelligence, at least to that of the Gaza Division and the Southern Command. So we are told by some security officials. Now the question arises.
They fail to realize the majority of the U.S. want to hear coverage on this matter. Yeah, I think it's this is the end of it. But while unlikely it could have been a miscalculation from Netanyahu, where he saw America rally around him and behind Bush post 9/11, it would have given him the chance to push the attention off his court shenanigans. I doubt it. Because I think that this is like, I don't know. I think that this will lead to the demise of Israel. Like Israel's reaction since October 7 will inevitably, it accelerated it. It accelerated Israel's bloodthirsty genocidal ambitions, and it did it in such a short period of time that it is going to inevitably lead to its downfall. Anyway, here's the former chief of staff of the National Security Council. Former U.S. official Fred Fleets storms out of an interview with an Egyptian network after being questioned about the Palestinians' right to resist per international law. Says, what is being... Yeah, Israel's about to be was real. Oh, God. What is happening in my house? What is being reported on various TV networks, including the ones you mentioned, CNN, Al Jazeera, along with Al God, along with TV networks around the world. They show the horrors and crimes that Israel has been committing. The most recent of which was yesterday's massacre at Al Nusayrat camp, resulting in hundreds between the martyrs and the wounded. Can the U.S., the West, and Israel hide that from the world, including Far East Asia? What do you have to say about that, Mr. Flights?
I'm really disappointed that
I'm really disappointed that your network would use a term like massacre when describing the Nusayrat camp massacre, dude. Like, dude, 200 people, dude. What the fuck do you mean? 200 plus people were mercilessly slaughtered through endless bombing campaigns. Like, the fuck do you mean? You can't call... Oh, I'm disappointed that you're calling it a massacre. What are you supposed to call it?
لا أشعر بالاستياء في استخدام كلمة مجزرة على شاشات التلفاز هذه.
What do you call what happened? And then he chimes in. What do you call in that? What happened at the Al Nusayrat camp yesterday when Israel killed 247 people?
ما حدث بالأمس في مخيم النصيرات عندما تقتل إسرائيل 247 شخصا بينهم أطفال ونساء.
Including women and children. What do you call that? A walk in the park? A tragic happenstance? Like a car accident?
ماذا تسميه؟ هل تسميه نزهة يعني؟ هل تسميه مثلا حادث مأساوي يعني سيارة ضربتهم؟
I mean, you're not going to let me answer, but this is a war started.
في الحقيقة
you're not going to
هذه
let me answer, but this is a war that Hamas started when it executed hundreds of
بدأتها
Israelis.
حماس عندما قامت بإعدام مئات الإسرائيليين والآن
And now we
نرى
see
أن
that it
هناك
continues to hold
احتجاز
hostages. He goes in and chimes in and says something that I've been saying since fucking early October. Sir, the Gaza Strip is unoccupied territory, and international law
قطاع
permits
غزة أرض محتلة والقانون الدولي يبيح
those under occupation to resist. Are you aware of that? Which is correct, which is why there's a distinction between October 7 and a distinction between October 9, okay? In terms of Hamas activities, in terms of the Palestinian resistance, it has every right under international law to resist against a belligerent occupier killing a shit ton of its civilians. There is no way that you can justify it, okay? You can keep saying Hamas are terrorists, okay, till the goddamn cows come home, but it does not change the reality that a spontaneous militia can absolutely resist against an occupying force. Israel does not have the right to attack Gaza. As a belligerent occupier, Israel, under international law, does not have the right to attack the civilian population of Gaza. Okay? On the other hand, however, the Palestinian resistance forces absolutely have the right to murk and sauce up and do pack watch to every single fucking IDF soldier that is in the Gaza Strip. That's it. They have the international authority to do so, and they have, I would even go so far as to say, the moral obligation to do so. The notion that they are supposed to fucking sit back, put their guns down, and like allow to be no-scoped by some Israeli drone sniper is ridiculous, okay? They have every right to liquidate the Israeli occupying force in the Gaza Strip. As far as like this chatter who's asking over and over again, did they kill civilians on October 7th? Yes, they did. They did kill unarmed civilians. It wasn't just Hamas. It was the Palestinian Resistance Force. Okay? It absolutely was. And they did. Those would be considered an act of terror. I recognize that. I have spent the first 4 months probably consistently starting every conversation with a condemnation of Hamas. Hamas. Do you condemn Hamas? Okay? Now, the other side of this, of course, is that Israel is conducting a military operation as a belligerent occupier on an open-air prison that it fucking completely maintains with round-the-clock surveillance. They have the knowledge to do targeted, precise strikes, and yet they choose not to. Okay? So, in the grand scheme of things, there is one truly greater evil here, and that greater evil is Israel. If we consider targeted and deliberate strikes against the civilian population to be acts of terror, okay, then Israel has done October 7th times 100 since October 7. Israel has a significantly worse enemy combatant to civilian rate in terms of who they have killed than Hamas or the entirety of the Palestinian resistance. I'm with you, dude. Just wanted to be precise about what the right of resistance entails. Yes, I'm telling you. The only difference here is that we do not have the capacity to analyze our allies especially as a state that has like a theoretical democracy, a parliamentary system, to ever behave like terrorists, even though Nazi Germany did that as well. Okay? They created a legal structure to allow all of the atrocities that they engaged in. Do you understand? Just because it is a democratic governance, and just because they are like aligned with the Western world, does not change the reality that they can still absolutely engage in the ethnic cleansing of a civilian population, the ethnic cleansing of a population, as Israel is currently doing. It's demonstrating every single day. If we are to look at militancy on both sides of this equation, even if you were to reduce the morality of each side's actions and put them on the same moral playing field, which I don't think is just. I don't think that's just at all. Israel still is infinitely worse than Hamas in the way that it conducts its military operations. This is something to understand. This is something that you have to consider. Having said that, however, I don't think that there is the same moral playing field regardless, because one is an ascetic militia movement born out of the apartheid conditions that an entire population has been subjected to for 75, 76 years now. The other is a heavily militarized nuclear armed state that has been maintaining the apartheid. So in the broader scheme of things, yes, the Palestinians obviously have a right to resist. Okay? In that resistance, they will go above and beyond, given how violent that occupation has looked like. Because at the end of the day, the colonial entity, or the more powerful group, the more powerful military force, sets the standard for violence. And we've seen how Palestinian resistance has become more violent and changed targets throughout time. If you look at the first Intifada, very famously fought with, children throwing stones. The second Intifada, on the other hand, had bus bombings, right? Like, civilian targeting happened as a consequence, as a direct consequence, because even when Hamas was forming, or even any kind of Palestinian resistance was forming early on, it simply was mass strikes, right? Throwing rocks, things of that nature. By the time the second Intifada rolled around, however, there had been unimaginable acts of terror towards the Palestinian population, very violent moments of terror that the Palestinians had experienced. Yeah, specifically, the Hebron mosque attack is what changed Hamas from a violent resistance group, a resistance group that was, always interested in potentially utilizing violence, to one that wouldn't only target military, but instead civilians as well. Now, we can have a conversation separately on whether or not that is successful. I don't think it is. Okay? I don't think targeting Israeli civilians is a successful method if you want to get your point across. I don't think that that is a successful method at all. Okay? Don't say it never works. But in the case of Israel, it does not. Okay? And that is not just my assessment of the matter. From what I understand, Rashid Khalidi had talked about this a while back when he was on the Intercepted podcast, where they brought in like a dude that specifically worked with the FLN in Algeria to basically give them advice on how they can resist against the Israeli occupation better. Like, what are the most successful methods? And one of the things that the guy said to them, he basically is like a terror expert. Okay. And one of the things that he immediately said was, you cannot attack the Israeli civilian population, because the Israeli civilian population will only harden in their defense of the occupation if you attack the civilian population. And you can kind of see that as well, because the military is obviously always going to be fair game in terms of terrorism, in terms of like any kind of resistance. Police, military, security forces is always considered fair game, right? But when you start targeting civilians, it might work in certain instances, but it usually doesn't work, especially if the civilians don't necessarily have ease of access to other countries, or if they have nowhere to go. A lot of people think that Israelis can all just go back to Europe, or go back to this country, go back to that country. That doesn't work that way. Many Israelis do not have that allegiance with whatever nation that their families originally immigrated from, either as a consequence of pogroms, or as a consequence of the Holocaust, or a consequence of directly wanting to move to Israel once the nation state was formed. It doesn't matter. They feel like Israel is their land. They feel like Israel is their own country. It's all they know. They speak Hebrew. They don't speak Arabic. You know what I mean? These are all major reasons as to why the settler terrorism that the Israelis engage in, and the resistance to said settler terrorism, is going to be a little bit different than the French colonial occupation of Algeria and resisting against that, because they can just fucking go back. They can leave their food burning on the oven, well, and fly out back to France. Same with Vietnam. Okay? This was not my assessment. This was the assessment of the, like I said, terrorism expert. Obviously, the very same thing is doubly, if not quadruply true for the Palestinian population. Israel thinks they can purge the Palestinian ranks by, making Gaza impossible to live in. And yet these Palestinians have nowhere to fucking go. And they don't even want to leave for the most part. Why don't they want to leave? These are their ancestral homes. They already had they remember their parents being purged from their homelands, from their homes, and not being able to return. That's the reason why they're in Gaza, which is, very densely populated. So for understandable reasons, they don't want to leave. They don't want to leave Gaza. Even if they have the opportunity to do so, they probably don't want to leave Gaza because they know that they will never return if they are forced out. You cannot deal with people who have nowhere to go. This was the same for any amount of, this is the same for any kind of indigenous resistance. You either have to go full-blown genocide or you will inevitably leave after 20-year occupation, whether it be Afghanistan or Vietnam. Okay? That's it. The Palestinians don't have targeting systems like Hezbollah or Israel, though? Yes, that is true. You are correct. They do not. Nor do they have the population registry of all Israeli citizens in the same way that Israel has the population registry of all Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank too, but especially in the Gaza Strip too.
يتعرض للاحتلال المقاومة. هل تدرك ذلك؟ طيب.
So it talks about the right of resistance that people have, and the guy logs off. Well, it seems like my guest in Washington did not appreciate such questions.
هذا النوع من الأسئلة غادرنا يعني للأسف.
And is disconnected, unfortunately.